Main event of the evening.
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing Season 8, Episode 18, Scholarship.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Scholarship.
We open with Jefferson High winning the basketball All-State semifinals.
He makes a new scoring record. Chachi, Jefferson's on the way to the finals.
After the game, Chachi is approached by Eddie, a man who says he's a scout for Eastern Florida University, and he wants to give Chachi a basketball scholarship.
You play a good game, kid.
Oh, thanks. I can play even better, but I'm breaking in a new pair of socks, so...
You did just fine.
Chachi is reluctant to leave Joni for Florida for 4 years, so Eddie offers her a scholarship to the same college as well.
Sure would be a lot warmer than in Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's right. You're a very intelligent girl.
The excited duo leave for Arnold's, and Eddie places a phone call, boasting he can definitely get Chachi, even if he couldn't get any of the others.
What do you mean it's my last chance?
At the Cunningham house the next day, Joni tells her family that she got a cheerleading scholarship to Eastern Florida University. Howard is baffled.
You're gonna go to college on Boomalaka Boomalaka?
Fonzie and Chachi enter, with Fonzie delighted that Chachi is going to be the first Fonzarelli to go to college. Roger, also baffled, asks about whether the scout said anything about Chachi's grades. Chachi says he only has to pass the entrance exam. There's even a campus job lined up for him, turning on the lights in the football stadium.
$200 a week.
Wow.
$200 for turning on the lights?
Well, there must be a lot of lights.
Marion, overjoyed that Joni is going to college, starts making plans and goes to call and tell her mother the good news. Chachi wants to take Joni out. Eddie gave him an advance of $100 for laundry money. Howard and Roger both think something is incredibly shady about the whole situation.
This is all wrong, isn't it, Roger?
I'm afraid so.
Fonzie is too happy for Chachi and Joni to see anything strange, and he argues with Roger about the quality of the school before concluding that Roger is just jealous.
You know, Raji, you're jealous.
The next day at Arnold's, Chachi is studying for his entrance exam. It's not going well.
This stuff is murder.
Murder.
Eddie shows up, and Chachi admits he's not much of a studier, and he's gotten every question on the test exam wrong so far. Eddie isn't bothered by this, concluding Chachi is probably a late bloomer, and the university has a plan for this.
You're probably what we call an ALB,
What's that?
an academic late bloomer.
Chachi can take the entrance exam when he gets his degree. Oh, and Eddie needs Chachi's birth certificate to make a copy of it, for clerical reasons. Then Eddie gives it to a guy named Morty, who will be taking the test for Chachi.
Morty, I'm gonna need you to take a test for a kid. You'll get the usual.
Roger confronts Eddie, who claims Chachi is a bright kid, then flees. Roger decides to go to the test center tomorrow and wish Chachi luck.
It's the least I could do, right?
The next day, Roger returns to the Cunningham house to tell Fonzie that he saw someone else taking the entrance exam for Chachi. Chachi comes by looking for Joni, and Fonzie angrily lectures him.
You cheated.
What are you talking about?
Chachi, who has no idea what was going on, insists that Eddie is his friend and everything is fine, until Fonzie brings up another kid taking his test. But Chachi still doesn't get it.
I got a scholarship and I'm going to EFU.
Well, you're going to get very hungry then.
Why is that?
Because you can't eat without teeth.
At the next Jefferson High basketball game, Fonzie confronts Eddie over cheating a 17-year-old, but Eddie is slippery and refuses to admit to any wrongdoing.
Hey, what do you want from me? If you don't want him to go, he doesn't have to go. But he said he wanted to go.
As the game goes on, Chachi slips and injures himself.
Arcola steals the ball. Arcola's hurt.
Afterwards, Chachi is using a pair of crutches to get around, and the doctor says he might need them for a while.
Well, I think some ligaments have been torn away.
Yeah, so bad?
I don't think he'll be playing for a long time.
Eddie takes the opportunity to say that there was a problem with the entrance exam, namely, that another kid took the test for Chachi, and it may take a while for EFU to figure out if they can accept him. Fonzie ascertains that they'll just be waiting to see if Chachi's ankle heals, and when Eddie says that's just Fonzie's opinion, Al tries to attack him.
What, you want my opinion? Fonz, you hold my jacket. I'm gonna give this guy my opinion.
And Roger threatens to report Eddie to the NCAA. Fonzie makes him leave the campus.
Hey, kid. I hope your ankle heals.
Thanks, pal.
Chachi admits he let Eddie tell him things he knew were wrong because he liked what he was hearing. Roger assures him that there will be other scouts, and if they don't like Chachi's grades, he can go to junior college first. Fonzie and Al leave for Arnold's, and Roger goes to join the team in the locker room.
I gotta go back to the locker room. The guys are gonna throw me in the showers. Ah, it's a tradition.
Joni sits down with Chachi, and he apologizes for not being able to get her into EFU. She's not that broken up about it, and they make out in the empty gym.
Hey, you wanna know something?
What?
We are all alone here.
We are.
Thank you, Peter. That was Scholarship. It first aired back on April 14th, 1981.
Time to file your taxes, y'all.
Happy Days was followed by a new Laverne and Shirley, in which Frank and Edna celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary by fighting. CBS had a new episode of Palmerstown, USA. In this episode, the flu epidemic comes to Palmerstown, and the locals blame it on some newly arrived Chinese immigrants. And NBC had a couple of animated specials, Daffy Duck's Easter Show.
Easter is that time of the year when we don our newest duds and promenade in the Easter parade. Well, what are we waiting for?
And the Berenstain Bears Easter Surprise. In the first special, Daffy battles Sylvester for a golden egg, Speedy Gonzales finds chocolate eggs for poor children, and Daffy hitchhikes north for springtime. On the second special, Papa Bear invents an Easter egg machine.
Easter is delicious tastes, yummy smells, coconut eggs with chocolate shells, colored eggs and paper grass, treats for every lad and lass.
So, Peter, of those 3 choices, what are you watching?
Well, as thrilling as the pandemic racism episode of Palmerstown, USA sounds, I'm going to go with Daffy Duck and the Berenstain Bears for Easter.
I'm definitely watching the Daffy Duck Easter special, and I'm sure that the episode of Palmerstown, USA has a valuable social message for all of us, but it sounds like a downer of an episode. What do you think?
Yeah, and also we are currently living through 2 pandemics, one of which a lot of people have been blaming on China for no particular reason. I don't want to see that on my TV right now.
Scholarship was directed by Jerry Paris, and it was written by Mark Rothman. In the past, Mark has written such episodes as Fonzie Moves In, A Date with Fonzie, The Hucksters, and Welcome to My Nightmare. As for guest stars this week, let's start with Philip R. Allen as Eddie Monroe, our college recruiter. Philip was an actor from Pittsburgh who worked in TV and film from the late 60s well into the 2000s. Before Happy Days, he had already been a regular on the Bad News Bears and guested on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, the Bob Newhart Show, Lou Grant, Dark Shadows, Kojak, Black Sheep Squadron, and more. He was also in the made-for-TV movie Helter Skelter.
Here's a song called Piggies. Now, they printed Death to Pigs on the wall.
Right.
And here's a song called Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter was on the refrigerator door. Look, I know it's a wild guess.
That's not so wild. It's not so wild.
After Happy Days, he appeared on Mork and Mindy, Matlock, Alice, 21 Jump Street, Designing Women, and Law & Order. Philip's movie credits include Mommy Dearest. He's a Pepsi executive in that one.
Well, we assumed that with your husband gone, you would no longer want to be on the board.
Al and I helped build Pepsi to what it is today. I intend to stay with it.
Midway, The Onion Field, and The Lady in Red, but he's best known for his role as Captain Esteban in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
Send a coded message for Starfleet Commander. Priority 1. Federation science vessel Grissom arriving Genesis planet, Mutara sector to begin research. J.T. Esteban commanding.
Philip died at the age of 72 in 2012. Peter, what did you think of Philip R. Allen as Eddie Monroe?
He was so much fun. The basic premise of this episode is that Chachi is very dumb and easily taken in by these absolutely absurd promises and pretty blatant bribery. And I think that Eddie plays that very well. He has a knack for making the most absurd statements sound somewhat reasonable if you don't think about them for too long. He is easily the highlight of this episode for me, although I have to admit that probably a lot of that is the person that he's trying to scam is Chachi, and I don't like Chachi very much.
Philip R. Allen's performance is easily the highlight of Scholarship. He plays this sleazy and yet charming recruiter. Of course, in a part like this, it requires a little bit of charm and finesse and a lot of fast talking, and Philip is great at that. In that one conversation where he's talking to his boss on the phone, there is some desperation in his voice. I actually started to sympathize with Eddie Monroe for a few minutes there. He's in a tough business and he's in a tough position right now. Part of it might be that I saw a sketch on Mr. Show with Bob and David called Recruiters. and it's about basketball recruiters and how desperate and sad that they all are.
I'm thinking about running away from my grandma's house. I'm sick of living there. I just take a bag, a sleeping bag, and I'll just run as far as I can, and I'll find food wherever I can.
We also have Doug Dowd as Morty, the fake Chachi. This was Doug's only known acting credit, though I must say it's a memorable one. What did you think of Doug Dowd as Morty?
He gets a fun little moment where he asks whether he should have Chachi just pass the test by a hair or be a genius. And I like that he cared enough about the job to ask that question. Other than that, there's not really that much to say. I did like his glasses, though.
I thought he delivered his lines very well.
So how well do you want this kid to do, huh? Genius or just a slip by?
And I have to assume he was probably some local community theater performer who maybe went for a casting call on Happy Days and got it.
Congrats on those residuals, Doug Dowd.
I'm so bloody rich!
Director Jerry Paris cameos as the Doctor. Jerry had previously appeared in The Not Making of a President and Fonzie Loves Pinky Part 3. It's interesting that these little cameos were among Jerry's final acting performances. In the later years of his life, Jerry focused almost exclusively on directing both television and feature films. Did you have any feelings about Jerry Paris as our Doctor?
It was nice seeing him, although he doesn't really make a ton of impact.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he gave himself this part. It's not a fun part. He has to be the serious, dour one in the scene. I much preferred him in The Not Making of a President, where he's the one heckling Richie Cunningham's political speech.
That was great.
As for songs this week, we hear Blueberry Hill by Fats Domino and Walk Right In by the Rooftop Singers. Those are songs we've heard many times, but it was nice to hear some Fats Domino on the show. As for cultural and historical references, Potsy says, I want all of you to drive home safely because I'm walking. This is a reference to I'm Walkin', a 1957 hit for Fats Domino. So another little Fats Domino reference in the episode. There is no Eastern Florida University.
I got a scholarship to Eastern Florida University.
Oh, that's a big school.
For obvious reasons, the college in this episode is fictional. There is an Eastern Florida State College, but it's only gone by that name since 2013.
Listen, have you talked to any other scout?
Well, one. You see, the other guy was from the University of Arkansas.
The University of Arkansas, founded in 1871 and located in Fayetteville, is very real, and it's an NCAA Division I school with a very competitive basketball program, so it is realistic that they would send a recruiter around to Jefferson High to look for players.
Oh, nice school, but you know it is in Arkansas.
Yeah, he was very honest about that.
This episode makes a lot of jokes about cheerleading scholarships, but these do exist at many colleges and universities across America. Unfortunately, they tend to be about $500 to $1,000 a year in today's money, hardly enough to cover the cost of college education.
Are you saying there might be something shady about this whole situation with Eastern Florida University?
I'm implying it, yes. Obviously, Eddie is violating many of the NCAA's recruiting rules in this episode. This is far from my area of expertise, Peter, but it looks like recruitment must be done by members of an institution's academic or athletic staff, and financial inducements outside of formal scholarship opportunities are strictly forbidden.
Also, according to this episode, apparently it used to be a thing for colleges to give their students laundry money. Eddie gives Chachi $100 advance for laundry money, and that's one of the things that makes Roger think that this whole thing might be off, because apparently colleges are only supposed to give their students $10 a month for laundry money. So I learned something.
But that's $10 a month in 1963 money, which is like $100 now, so...
That's still way more than $100 in today money.
Okay, Peter, I had to do Chachi's math problem for him.
If one boy mows 10 square yards and gets $8.45,
Yeah, got that.
So if two boys mow 3 acres, what do they get? Tired?
A boy mows 10 square yards and gets $8.45. That means he gets 84.5 cents per square yard. An acre is 4,840 square yards. 3 acres is 14,520 square yards. At 84.5 cents per square yard, that's $12,269.40. But there are 2 boys mowing, so each one would get $6,134.70. But you would also be dead because you could not possibly mow 3 acres with a lawnmower.
See? You figured it out. It's a trick question.
Fonzie compares Chachi to the Wright brothers. Orville and Wilbur Wright were 2 brothers from Dayton, Ohio, born shortly after the Civil War. In 1892, they opened a store where they sold and repaired bicycles. Their work with bicycles influenced their aeronautic experiments, leading ultimately to the invention of the airplane as we know it. Other observations this week: it's odd that Happy Days would do 2 back-to-back basketball episodes right after vanquishing its old rival, the White Shadow.
Monday on The White Shadow, Coolidge gets a pro offer that's hard to refuse, but Coach Reeves thinks it's a phony. Find out why Monday at 8, 7 Central.
This is kind of a victory lap for them. This is rubbing their success in the White Shadow's face.
And this episode subtly continues the story from last week, with Jefferson High advancing to the state basketball championship. This is one of the rare times when Happy Days is subtly serialized. They were in the state basketball championships last week, and they're further along in the championships this week. And I believe at the end of the episode, they have actually won the state championship. Is that your impression as well?
I believe so. John doesn't appear in this episode, but maybe he's just off screen the whole time.
That's what I thought. This episode has one of the most blatant examples of leaving the front door open for an entire scene, which is one of my pet peeves. I realized that they had to leave the door open so that Scott Baio could jump into Henry Winkler's arms, but couldn't someone have closed it when they were done?
Close the door!
Marion walks right by that door and she leaves it open. No mom in the history of the American suburbs has ever done that.
Yeah, and this is like spring. So if you don't close the door, you're going to get bugs.
Howard's chair is back, so that's something. Fonzie says that Roger is jealous, but I doubt that a Yale graduate would be jealous of Eastern Florida University. And I like that the schools on Happy Days seem to have presidential names. Last week, Jefferson played Fillmore. This week, it's Van Buren. That's a subtle thing, but I liked it. And this was another episode that dropped the 2 acts and a tag format for 3 acts. So maybe the writers are trying to experiment a little bit with the form of the show. Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions in scholarship?
I really liked Eddie's very loud suit jackets.
Eddie, are you kidding? The people always ask me.
They're very used car salesman, but in a subtle enough way that it makes him not quite unbelievable. I guess that's what I like about Eddie throughout this episode. He teeters on being a cartoon character without actually becoming one outright.
And I would say that his outfits are a big part of that. They are tacky and they are loud, but they're not completely ridiculous. Okay, Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question. Was this episode any good?
Yeah, this might be one of my favorite episodes of season 8. Mostly it's just for Eddie.
Eddie, my love, I love you so much.
Eddie might be one of my favorite one-off characters in all of Happy Days, and that is saying something. And I also liked seeing Chachi be stupid for 20 minutes. If it has to be a Chachi-centric episode, you might as well go that route.
And admit it, Peter, you probably liked seeing Chachi in severe pain by the end of the episode.
I did. I liked that very much.
He's injured, he's on crutches, he's hobbling around, and he's all but abandoned at the end of the episode.
Well, except for Joni.
Except for Joni. For me, it is very difficult to get excited about a Chachi episode. I had to admit to myself that I would have been much more engaged with this episode had the exact same thing happened to Richie.
But Richie wouldn't have had to have someone else take his entrance exam.
No, obviously. I believe Richie was valedictorian. So you're right. This story would not have worked for Richie. But they could have had a sleazy recruiter come and talk to him anyway. I don't know. As Chachi episodes go, this is about as good as we're going to get. And we have an excellent guest performance from Philip R. Allen. So if you want to do a painless Chachi episode, ironically ending with Chachi in pain, scholarship is definitely the way to go. It is enjoyable, even though we get a whole lot of Scott Baio in this thing. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Peter Volfranc. That's PeterVulfranc.
And they can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysare.libsyn.com. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysarepodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, Richie and Lori Beth get married without Ron Howard ever appearing on screen. Find out how in RC and LB Forever.
I'm excited already. So see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
From the day he was born, he was trouble. He was the thorn in his mother's side. She tried in vain, but he never caused her nothing but shame. He
shakalaka boomalaka.